Welcome to Single-Minded. What you are about to see and hear is the outcome of work done by the Grasping the Nettle group. The Grasping the Nettle group was set up a year ago and comprises 2 representatives from each of our parochial church councils. The group was set up to help us to think through our response to the challenges we face as churches in the challenging times in which we live. This evening's presentation concerns the suggestion that we might become a single parish. However, the remit of the Grasping the Nettle group is much wider and will include such things as how do we reach out to children and families and young people, and how do we recruit our own ministry resources. However, those 2 things are for a later time. Tonight we think about the single parish proposal. And we continue with a map. You will see from the map that we are a group of 9 parishes. They are, in alphabetical order, Appledore, Ebony, Newenden, Rovenden, Smallhithe, Stone, St Michael's, Tenterden and Wittersham. A group of churches is sometimes called a benefice. A parish is a geographical area which may or may not match the civil parish boundaries, and each of our parishes has its own church and its own parochial church council, legal requirements under church law.
We're going to think now a little bit about what this presentation is about. We are here to think about the creation of a single parish, that is, a single ecclesiastical geographical area with 1 parochial church council and 9 churches. We're going to explore the reasons behind this proposal. We will discover what a single parish is and what a single parish is not. We're going to share with you some possible structures and also look at some possible arrangement of finances. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll give you some information on the process involved in becoming a single parish. At the end of this presentation, if you would like further information, we'll let you know ways in which you can contact us with your thoughts, opinions and questions. And so now we move on to what is not in doubt.
What we will present has no bearing whatsoever on the future of our church buildings, nor on the services and other aspects of the life of our churches. These will remain completely unaffected by the decision to become a single parish. In a nutshell then, we are talking only about church governance. So why now? Well, there are 2 main reasons that have prompted us to look at the concept of a single parish. The first is an actual or potential shortage of church wardens, treasurers, secretaries and so on. Most of our parochial church councils currently have vacancies. Only 2 of our parochial church councils have the required 2 church wardens, and 2 of our parochial church councils have no church wardens at all. Even when and where the roles are currently occupied, the roles of church warden, treasurer and secretary, it is very far from clear where successors may be found. If we cannot find people to take on these roles, the churches will not function properly at a governance level. So perhaps a question to ask then is, how long will our current church wardens, treasurers and secretaries be willing to stay in post? and how easy will it be for us to recruit successors? The second reason that has prompted us to look at the concept of a single parish is that at some point in the not too distant future we are going to be looking for a new team rector and or team vicar. 2 full-time stipendiary ministers are the most that we can hope for. So, how will we make sure that at a time when there are more vacancies than available clergy, good people will want to apply to come here? 9 parochial church councils are a very unattractive proposition. A single parish will send out a powerful signal to would-be applicants that the churches in the benefice are willing to work very closely together. In addition, a single parish will create greater cohesion and much simpler administration. But there are other benefits too.
So what are these other benefits? Well, first of all, it gives us greater opportunities to work more closely together. Working more closely together builds trust and mutual support. This is something that can already be seen in the way that our safeguarding team works across the group of churches. Secondly, a single PCC can best coordinate the mission and the ministry across the whole benefice for the growth of the church, and so enable each of our churches to grow. So much of the work that we do depends on the sharing of resources, both human and practical. Another reason, a reduced duplication of work and responsibilities, and therefore a greater economy of time, scale, and potentially cost. At the moment, 9 PCC meetings, from our perspective, often cover the same ground and the same discussion 9 times over. A single PCC would not therefore have a massive agenda, as there would be significantly less repetition. Currently, time is being taken up by governance rather than by worship, mission and ministry. We're going to hear some more about this later on in the presentation. Finally, for now, improved communication. Improved communication would mean less repetition, and this means fewer accidental omissions and a more coordinated and official oversight. Dealing with fewer people at a governance level enables the oversight of the benefice to be carried out more efficiently.
What a single parish is not. In a moment we'll explain what a single parish is, but first what it is not. First, a single parish is not the brainchild of the Diocese of Canterbury. We are exploring this entirely of our own volition, simply because, like many other organisations, we are finding it difficult to recruit people to necessary roles. Also because we want to make our benefice, our group of churches, as attractive a place to apply to come to as we can possibly make it. Our diocese does not have a view, but will offer us valuable advice and support. Second, a single parish will not affect what goes on in any of our churches, Sunday by Sunday, or during the week. A single parish will have implications only for our church governance. Third, a single parish is not about closing churches. Fourth, a single parish is not a takeover of one church by another, or about eradicating the local, but a way of running 9 churches and 1 parish in a way that respects the local and through mutual support gives greater resources to the local. Now, what a single parish is.
Here you see a map of our present parish boundaries. In essence, a single parish involves the dissolution of individual parishes and the creation of a new single parish. Imagine, if you will, that someone takes a giant eraser and rubs out the present ecclesiastical boundaries between individual parishes, leaving only the peripheral boundary. If this were to happen, we would then have one geographical area. Now, a merger of this kind would leave us with a single parochial church council, revised financial arrangements, local church teams responsible for fundraising and buildings, and 9 churches. And we're going to have a look now in more detail at each of these things.
We begin with local church teams. A single parish could be a way of strengthening rather than undermining the local. Local church teams could be created to care for each church building and engage in such fundraising activities as will enable the congregation which worships in that building to pay its way, raising the necessary funds to ensure the upkeep of the church building, to contribute towards the running costs of the worship, mission and ministry of the benefice, and raising money to pay the parish share to the Diocese of Canterbury, who in turn pay the stipends of the clergy. The local church teams could comprise members of the congregation and people from the wider community who have, for example, a love of the church building and who want to see it maintained. The local church teams would have delegated authority from the PCC, and friends groups, where they exist, would continue as autonomous organisations raising valuable funds for the upkeep of the church building. Parish representatives on the single PCC would also be members of the local church teams, creating a smooth partnership between the two bodies. Here we see a possible allocation of responsibilities set out in very general terms. So the single parochial church council then could have responsibility for worship, mission and ministry, safeguarding and finance. The local church teams could have responsibility for buildings, safeguarding and the raising of money. Now we look in more detail at the parochial church council.
So at the point when the churches that wish to become a single parish, a special annual parochial church meeting would be held. At this meeting, church wardens would be elected, as now, by everyone who lives in the area of the single parish. This is legally how things are done at the current time. Anybody at all who lives in a parish boundary is entitled to come and vote for the church wardens. Following this, PCC members are elected, as now, by those who would be on the new single parish electoral roll. The PCC would comprise representatives of all of our churches. Over the next year, the Grasping the Nettle group will be giving more thought to how this could be worked out. But there are a couple of possible composition models that we may start with to get us thinking about what would work in our benefice. So under one of those models, the precise number would be determined by the average of the previous 3 years' average Sunday attendance figures. Now, these are the figures that are used by the Diocese of Canterbury to determine our parish share. The parish share is the amount we pay each year towards the cost of our clergy and the running costs of essential diocesan departments. no one church would have an overall majority of elected members. Another possible composition model would be each parish or each church would send 2 representatives to elected members to the PCC. The new PCC would be responsible for the whole benefice. It would set the strategic direction of the single parish and its worship, mission and ministry. One thing that we would need to get used to is a PCC with a very different remit from how PCCs are run at the moment. By having a benefice-wide single PCC, the strategic direction would form most of the sort of day-to-day working of that group. Until, of course, we know how many churches are planning to be a part of this, we can't really give any more precise details on the makeup of the PCC. Now let's take a look at the role of the church wardens.
Quite clearly, church wardens at a single PCC are going to be a very different animal to church wardens as they exist at the moment. A person cannot be a church warden to 9 churches in the same way that he or she can be a church warden to 1. And so the church wardens then would fulfil a strategic rather than a local role, a very different way of working. They would work with the clergy and the parochial church council in a way that is about the big picture, encompassing worship, mission and ministry, and the direction of the benefice and the 9 churches within it. We now come to money. So, how would a single parish proposal affect the financial arrangements of the 9 churches? The answer is that there are a number of software systems, any one of which would make administering church finances relatively straightforward. Having looked at a number of these and taken some professional advice from an independent advisor, our view is that something called My Fund Accounting will give us just what we need. This is a system that ensures compliance with Charity Commission requirements, whilst inspiring confidence at local church level that local money will be locally looked after. My Fund Accounting would seem to offer this. So how might it work? First, each church would continue with its existing bank account and retain its own funds. These will include designated and restricted funds. However, the bank accounts would need to be renamed in order to reflect the single parochial church council as the legal entity. So let's take the Rolvenden bank account as an example. This could be renamed Rolvenden Church (Tenterden, Rother and Oxney Benefice). For accounting purposes, each church account would effectively be an accounting branch, as we can see from the slide. Each set of accounts would need to be moved onto the new system. The treasurer of each church would be responsible for the postings of that church and also have read-only rights to the accounts of the other branches. The individual branches would be responsible for local receipts and payments, but a benefice branch, as we can see from the slide at the top there, would process payment of parish share and benefice worship, mission and ministry costs. And these costs, the parish share payments and the payments to the benefice, are already being made by the parishes, the individual churches of our existing group. So each church branch then would contribute an agreed sum to these costs. A finance committee with representation from each church would oversee the finances, and the read-only facility would ensure transparency and accountability. In the times in which we live, recruiting PCC officers, especially treasurers, is a challenge. This financial model ensures that where there is either a permanent or a temporary loss of treasurer, the finances of the church would continue to be administered. This system has mutual support built into it. In the event of a vacancy, a treasurer vacancy, a member of the local community could operate the system as a bookkeeper, whilst other members of the benefice finance team could be given the relevant permissions to ensure that the accounting is up to date. Once set up, the software provides ease of operation. The imminent merger of St Michael's Church and St Mildred's Church will enable us to road test the software, which is very modest in terms of its running costs. Now, we have met with the finance team at Diocesan House in Canterbury to share with them our thoughts. They have given their assent and pointed out that a number of other single parishes in the diocese are using similar methods of accounting. So here is now a possible timeline.
Clearly, the single parish concept is a challenging one for all sorts of reasons. Therefore, it is right that we take our time to think through and pray about the consequences of taking this step, or indeed of not taking this step. But because of likely ministerial changes, it would be helpful if individual PCCs can make a decision within the next year. And here we see a possible timeline. So, we would like our PCCs and wider communities to pray about, think about, and discuss the single parish proposal over the next few months in readiness to make a decision by the end of 2025. This would be the first of 3 phases of consultation. At the beginning of 2026, those parishes who are wishing to pursue the single parish options would enter the second phase. In this, the proposal is submitted to the Diocesan Mission and Pastoral Committee, the DMPC. As required by the DMPC consultation process, we would run further presentations. We would also make use of each of our magazines, posters, connect-ups and announcements in church services to draw everyone's attention to the invitation to submit views for or against this proposal. The DMPC would form an opinion based on the views for or against of those who live within the parish. If the DMPC feels there is sufficient support for the proposal, they will send it to the Church Commissioners, who will carry out the third phase of consultation. Now, the third phase is a little like this. Those who live in the parish will be invited once again to express their views either for or against. One thing we have learned from the proposal to merge St Michael's and St Mildred's churches is the information from the DMPC does not get passed on to the Church Commissioners. Therefore, it's very important that if people have views either supporting or opposing this proposal, they are resubmitted for this third phase. Once again, as required by the Church Commissioners, we would make use of our magazines, posters, connect up and announcements at church services to draw everyone's attention to the invitation to submit views for or against the proposal. At the conclusion of this third phase of consultation, a decision would be reached by the Church Commissioners. If there are objections, this would be done after the holding of a hearing. The entire consultation process could take up to a year. If approved, this proposal would then come into effect by the beginning of 2027. One of the reasons for this particular timeline is that within the next 3 to 4 years, it is likely that Lindsay will be retiring from ministry. If we are able to have this in place by the beginning of 2027, we should be able to have approximately a year in which we can run this through with Lindsay still in the role of team rector. Once the proposal is accepted, there would be an extraordinary annual parochial church meeting to elect the PCC and the church officers. Any PCCs who have taken the decision not to pursue the single parish option will continue with the current status quo. Now let's have a look in more detail at possible responses.
We still have much work to do on the role of the local church teams, the parochial church councils, the church wardens, and to explore further the financial model that would be most appropriate and effective for us. Once this work has been completed in conjunction with the Grasping the Nettle group and your good selves, then we will be ready to ask our PCCs, our parochial church councils, to vote either for or against. And so the possible responses then are yes or no. Yes means that a parish would like to take the next step along with others who feel the same and be part of the single parish. No, however, means that the parish wishes to continue as it is with its own PCC, its own parochial church council, 2 church wardens, a parochial church council secretary, a treasurer, a safeguarding officer, a deanery synod representative or representatives, and an electoral roll officer. Succession planning will be just as important, perhaps more so, for those churches saying no. Worship, pastoral, care and ministry, however, such as that to schools, would continue as before. There will be no change. However, because so much of our church work depends upon the sharing of common resources, we are all dependent on one another. And so in that sense, no parish, no church can truly go it alone. It would still be necessary for every parish, even those saying no to the single parish proposal, to be part of overarching coordinating groups such as safeguarding. Perhaps a good question to ask then is, which of these responses, yes or no, will make us stronger and more resilient as we seek to grow God's kingdom of love in these challenging times? Now to our benefice mission statement.
It is perhaps useful at this point to remind ourselves of our benefice mission statement and what it is that we are about in this benefice. Everything we do here is founded on this statement, and it always should be the guiding principle in our meeting and decision making. However we decide to go about our governance, it is underpinned by a church that is here to worship God. A church that is here to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, to welcome all who come. A church that is here to celebrate and pass on our rich Christian heritage and to discover our place in God's world and the local community. One clear benefit of streamlining our governance through the single parish proposal is the release of clergy time, to be taken up by the priorities of ordained ministry. If clergy are so released, we stand a much greater chance of galvanising the worship, mission and ministry of the whole people of God. All of this sits neatly alongside local church teams, expressing the presence of God through warm welcomes, well-maintained, beautifully kept, hospitable and well-funded places of worship. This will allow our churches to grow and flourish and to be around for the foreseeable future. For our part, this is something that we both feel very passionate about. The Grasping the Nettle group have kindly and generously worked with us to create a vision for our benefice future that we are sure can put us in a strong position to take the benefice forward in strength, opening up opportunities to develop our work in each community. So we are very keen to hear your thoughts, to help to answer your questions, and to know your opinion. Please do speak to Lindsay or Jeanette, send us an email, and open up those conversations within your church community as well as the wider community, so that together we are able to really discern where it is God is taking this benefice. Thank you for listening.